What is it that you believe in? It's not a trick question. Do you believe in freedom? How about oppression? What about equality or disparity? How about justice? Or maybe even exploitation? All of these are tied to politics in what we call ideology. I'm your host, Cielo, and welcome to CMW. And today we will be discussing the article Ideologies of Globalization, written by Manfred B Steger in 2005 as a response to Michael Freeden's article Ideologies and Political Theory, a Conceptual Approach. Michael Freeden somewhat acknowledges globalism as a possible holistic contender, but argues against its status as an ideology, seeing it as too early to proclaim it as such. So Kyle, what do you think is an ideology?
Well, it's traditionally defined as a family of belief systems composed of ideas and ideals tied to socio-economic policies that govern political thought in modern life. Examples are liberalism, conservatism, capitalism, Marxism, communism, etc.
What is an ideological family? And when does a political belief system be called as one?
Well, Freeden notes that mature ideologies display unique features anchored in distinct conceptual morphologies, wherein the criteria are, firstly, uniqueness and morphological sophistication, second, context-bound responsiveness, and the third is ability to produce decontestation chains.
Now let's focus on that last one, decontestation chains. Decontestation is used when a political concept is put to the matrix of other concepts on the framework of one ideology. An ideology attempts to end the inevitable contention over concepts by decontesting them, by removing their meanings from contest.
Freeden believes that globalization denotes not an ideology, while Steger rejects this statement, and he intends to establish in his article that globalism is mature enough to be pronounced as an ideology, saying that globalism represents a set of political ideas and beliefs coherent enough to warrant the status of a new ideology.
Steger breaks apart globalism into 6 core claims that play crucial semantic and political roles. He confines globalization to a set of complex social processes that are changing our current social condition, a compression of time and space as a result of societal and global changes.
Now, we will be breaking down 6 core claims of globalization as defined by Steger.
Claim 1. Globalization is about the liberalization and global integration of markets. This claim highly emphasizes on the market or economic aspect of globalization. Free markets, free trade, big businesses are among the main highlights of this. Liberalization in the context refers to the state letting go of the market, basically deregulation. Steger cites Thomas Friedman, which perfectly summarizes Claim 1. The driving idea behind globalization is free market capitalism.
Claim 1 somewhat forgets that markets may be the driving force today, but that does not mean government is helpless. If we reduce globalization to a purely economic phenomenon by removing barriers to the free flow of goods, services, and capital, then we forget that globalization is not merely an economic phenomenon. Globalization has multiple aspects that have profound effects in every aspect of modern life. Therefore, to say that globalization is only about the liberalization and global integration of markets would be missing the bigger picture.
Claim 2. Globalization is inevitable and irreversible. This claim assumes that globalization is inevitable and it is accelerating the reality of the modern world. Steger says that since the emergence of a world based on the primacy of market values, it reflects the dictates of history. Resistance would be unnatural, irrational, and dangerous. An important thing to note from Claim 2 is that globalism's ability to adapt to new realities of the post-9/11 world gives ample proof of its responsiveness to a broad range of political issues.
Globalization is inevitable and irreversible because in order to progress civilization, you'll need to pull in more and more resources to power continuous technological advancement. Historical example would be how the Industrial Revolution led to European imperialism, sparking global colonization efforts, which fueled even more industrialization. Modern civilization has grown to become dependent on a world that has been connected to every corner of the globe. It has come to rely on networks of entire global supply chains and a globalized economy where dependency has bred even more dependency. Over time, this cycle of need and want culminated in the globalization that we see today, materialism that is perpetually contagious.
Claim 3. Nobody's in charge of globalization revolves around the concept of the self-regulating market, where globalization does not reflect any party's agenda. After 9/11, the survival of globalization is conceived as the liberalization and global integration of markets that depended on the political leadership of the United States, but instead it showcased globalization's ideational flexibility and ability to respond to political issues. Steger ends Claim 3 by stating that globalization bore the marks of an ideational family.
Although no one is in charge of globalization, it does not mean that nobody can influence it. Since the meteoric rise of the United States in the 20th century, it has become the leader of the world economy and imposed its globalization-friendly agenda into every corner of the world while also enforcing its own interests. China today is a country that owes its current prosperity by profiting from and manipulating globalization to the point where it is able to challenge the US for global hegemony. The truth about globalization is that everyone has power over it, while everyone also has their own interests. To say that nobody is in charge is also not necessarily wrong, but it is a step in the wrong direction. The real question is, who has the most influence?
Claim 4. Globalization benefits everyone in the long run. This claim focuses on the benefits gained in material terms such as economic growth and prosperity. Steger takes from the G7 summit of 1997, wherein they define economic growth and progress is tied to the process of globalization because it provides great opportunities for the future for all countries. Steger notes that globalists seek to cement their decontestation of globalization as benefits for everyone by using science as a basis for hard evidence.
It is true that industrialization of a country increases the chances of its citizens to live prosperously, but it fails to see that there are always nations who profit and nations who are enslaved. Claim 4 assumes that there will always be resources and time, and that it's only a matter of how much profit is there to make. But that in itself is a paradox. Even though globalization is helping economies mature and bring more people out of poverty, it does not foresee a world of environmental devastation and ecological collapse. Unsustainable practices are not long-term solutions, and globalization fails in that on many accounts.
In Claim 5, globalization furthers the spread of democracy in the world. This claim links globalization and market to the adjacent concept of democracy. Steger says that globalists treats freedom, free market, and free trade and democracy as synonymous terms. He quotes Francis Fukuyama in saying that there's a clear correlation between a country's level of economic development and successful democracy. Additionally, Steger notes that the claim that globalization furthers the spread of democracy in the world is thus largely based on a narrow, formal, procedural understanding of democracy.
Most of the world considers democracy as a key player to globalization, but in 2020 that can easily be considered a myth. When Steger published Ideologies of Globalization, nobody saw China becoming a global superpower in just a little more than a decade, and the idea that more freedom equals more globalization was a prevailing thought. Most people thought that China will just be a manufacturing hub and did not recognize the profound effect globalization would have. Democracy does not always work, and you don't need democracy to experience economic growth.
Claim 6. Globalization requires a global war on terror. Claim 6 attests to globalism's political responsiveness and conceptual flexibility, where it combines the idea of economic globalization with openly militaristic and nationalistic ideas, revolving around the war on terror. Steger states that if global terror ended quickly, then Claim 6 would be a contingent one, and thus less important.
In the former claims, Steger praises globalization to be quite flexible and cites it as evidence for it to be an ideology. However, in this claim, he states that it needs a war on terror. This is quite perplexing because globalization was doing just fine before the US started its feverish crusade against terror. In hindsight, the war on terror did not affect globalization's progress in a significant way.
To conclude, Steger gives evidence of globalization as a new ideology and concludes it as such, but maybe for the wrong reasons. Globalization is not mutually exclusive as an ideology. In fact, it thrives in a diverse political landscape and especially in a diverse world. It seeps into the cracks of different ideologies and can subtly become an unstoppable force that can become irreversible. Ideology is used somewhat narrowly in the past decades to describe families of a thought, and globalization, for all its openness and broadness, simply does not fit the description of ideology and may even have already transcended it.